right, good morning or afternoon, everyone. It's Mark here. Today, we're going to go through and talk a little bit about WMS Express, which is, as it says on the screen, the free warehouse management solution for Business Central. All right, so what we're planning on doing today, a quick overview of WMS Express. Hopefully, we'll get through that fairly quickly, and we'll discuss that and the hardware options and everything else. And then we're going to jump directly into a demo of the software. And we'll probably answer all the questions at the end, but if you do have any questions as we're going through this, please enter them in the question box in the GoToWebinar panel, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end or potentially as we're going through the session. Hopefully this will take around 45 minutes, depending on how hard the caffeine hits me in the next few seconds here. All right, so a little bit about InsightWorks. We've been around for, about 10 years now, and I've been doing the warehouse management solution for NAV and Business Central, for almost that full 10 years. That was one of our earlier products. So we've got tons of installs out there and we work with a lot of Dynamics partners. So if you have questions about this, you can contact your partner, or, I'll give you some support options later on in the presentation. At the bottom here, it says we're barcoding experts, right? We've been doing this barcoding for about 10 years, shop floor, warehouse, all of those sorts of things. So then the question is, why would you care about barcoding? So I'll cover this real quick. If you're on this presentation, you probably already know why you want barcoding, or why you want a warehouse management solution. And from us, there's really a couple big reasons why you'd want that. And really it boils down to inventory accuracy and the timeliness of information. When you're doing scanning, you're doing a physical verification of every activity you're performing. So you're validating any information that's going into Business Central, you're validating with that physical scan. And that's going to keep your inventory very accurate. And that's important because, now you're not sending people out into the warehouse to pick something and they're wandering around for 20 minutes trying to find it. You should know exactly where that product is in the warehouse because you've got that accuracy. You're also not going to ship the wrong product, right? That can get very expensive. If you've got two different products in white boxes and you ship one white box instead of the other white box because they look the same, and now you have to pay for the shipping back and the angry customer and all those sorts of things, that's no good. By scanning that barcode, you can differentiate between those products very easily. So that's the accuracy part of it. And the timeliness is just getting that real-time data. There's no delays on the paperwork or anything else. And there's definitely some savings there as well. Anyway, again, you probably already know all that. So what you don't know is why you would use WMS Express to do that barcoding. Well, one of the big things is it's free, right? It's a free application, but it's easy to install. It has a lot of functionality. So when we talk to people, in warehouses and we ask what are the sort of core requirements of a warehouse solution, it really boils down to these three things and maybe a couple others, but they want to do receiving, they want to do picking, and they want to count their inventory with a handheld scanner. And that's what WMS Express provides. And we work with any Business Central cloud configuration. So whether you have advanced warehousing turned on in Business Central, or standard warehousing, or if you don't even have bins turned on, you're a retail store, no problem, WMS Express will work with that. All right, so availability, I've been mentioning Business Central. It is for the cloud version only. So if you're on Business Central on premises, or if you're on an older version of NAV or anything like that, you'll probably have to go with something like Warehouse Insight, which is, this guy's big brother. But if you're on Business Central Cloud and you're in North America, you can go to AppSource today, you can install it into your system, and you can try it out. Worldwide, Europe, other regions will be available probably within the next few weeks. We wanted to try it out, make sure it worked fine in North America before we broadcast it out to the rest of the world, but it's essentially available today. All right, now what do you get with it? There's really three versions of WMS Express. It's all one app that you install, but when you install it, you're going to choose sort of the flavor you want. And we do three things. We've got the standard system that's, a lot of the standard Business Central, especially the smaller environments that are set up, are using standard. You maybe have bins enabled, but you don't have inventory picks or warehouse picks turned on, or any of that sort of warehouse document or inventory document stuff turned on. So that's pretty typical. Basic warehouse is if you use inventory picks and inventory putaways. And if you don't know what those mean, doesn't matter. That means you probably just need standard. If you do know what that means and you're using them, then you turn on the basic warehouse. And the last one is the warehouse. If you're using the warehouse picks, warehouse receipts, warehouse putaways, warehouse shipments, those sorts of things, then you need this flavor. And again, if you don't know what those are, then don't worry about it. And this works with directed pick and put away as well. Now, one of the key things here is you can only have one of these installed at a time. So if you've got a warehouse that's serving a bunch of retail stores, you can't have basics set up for the stores and advanced or warehouse for the warehouse. You can only have one version installed at the same time. That doesn't really present many problems because the stores can still be set up, without warehouse receipts and all those sorts of things. And you can still use it for inventory counts and all that kind of stuff in the store, even though you've got the warehouse thing turned on. Okay, all right. And again, if there's any questions about that, just enter them in the question box. Now, a couple of related, well, more than a couple of related applications. So those are, when you install WMS Express off of AppSource, that's what you get, and then you get to choose one of those versions of WMS Express to install. There's a bunch of related applications that may be worthwhile in addition to that. So this first one here, Print Node Connector, you'll want that anyway. Whether you're using WMS Express or not, you'll probably want that if you're running Business Central Cloud, because Microsoft currently does not have a cloud print capability within Business Central. That's hopefully coming soon. But until then, you can use this. It's a free tool. You still have to sign up with a company called Print Node, but that gives you cloud print capability. And what that means is I can hit print from a sales document or something like that, and it can spit out a packing slip and a invoice and all that automatically on whatever printers I've specified. So there's no manual interaction required. And more importantly, when we're talking WMS Express, that allows me to print from the scanners. So if I wanted to print item labels or do a post and print or something like that, then this allows me to print from the scanners as well. Dynamic Ship is another good one. That's unfortunately not free, but this is a very good companion app for WMS Express because what it allows you to do is integrate all your carriers and everything else into Business Central. So I use WMS Express to do all my picking and all those sorts of things. I drop it off at shipping, and then right from shipping, they can get a UPS label or FedEx or DHL or whatever you're using and get it out the door. I mentioned inventory counts as part of WMS Express. We have that, and it's what we call the standard count, and it's a reasonably good count capability. But if you need more, specifically if you have lot numbers and serial numbers and you want to reconcile by those types of things, you're going to want the advanced inventory count. And if you're using directed pick and put away, you're going to want this. That's, again, you just plug that in, and then WMS Express will use the advanced inventory count instead of the standard. If you need to label your products, Barcode Generator is another free tool. Business Central now has fonts for barcodes you can use, but if you want these square barcodes, these data matrix barcodes, you can use Barcode Generator to generate those. You build your reports, and you can use this thing to generate the barcodes for those reports. Doc Extender is another free tool, and that allows you to drag and drop into Business Central. So not really that related to WMS Express, other than, it's a nice handy tool that you can use to just simply drag and drop, stores it on SharePoint or stores it in Business Central, and away you go. All right, so those are some of the companion tools. Now let's talk a little bit about how you might use the thing. So really any environment, right? Distribution center with directed put away. So that's advanced warehousing, no problem. WMS Express will work fine in that. And you might have actually, a distribution center that I mentioned earlier. It might be serving some retail stores. Well, you can run some handhelds in the stores, some in the warehouse, no problem. You can mix and match like that. So a whole bunch of different things you can do with Express. It's not, it's not limited to little toy environments or anything like that. You can actually use this in fairly complex environments. Now, there are some limitations though with that. Okay, so we mentioned the 3 usage scenarios already, right? The different versions. There's 5 devices per company set up. So we may, expand that. We've got a lot of larger organizations looking at WMS Express, so we may bump that up at some point from 5 to 10 or something along those lines. But for now, you've got 5 devices per company. And that's concurrent, which means you might have 15 devices in the organization, but as long as only 5 are being used at the same time, you're good. Okay, and that's per company. So if your retail store was a company, a separate legal entity from your warehouse or whatever, then you're set, right? You just have 5 per company. One of the big limitations as compared to Warehouse Insight. So Warehouse Insight is the big brother. WMS Express is sort of a scaled down version of Warehouse Insight. There's no customizations. What you get with the package is what you get. And there's a ton of configuration you can do, but not as much as what you can do within Warehouse Insight. So for example, you can't add your own menu items into the application, and you can't do things like that, things that you can do with Warehouse Insight. And the last one, you can't use it with Warehouse Insight. So what that means is you can't buy one license for Warehouse Insight to get all the goodies and then get 5 free licenses of WMS Express. It's one or the other. If you need the capabilities of Warehouse Insight, you have to buy the Warehouse Insight package and go with that. If you don't, you go with WMS Express. So let's actually see what that looks like, what those limitations look like. I'm just going to jump over, and we're going to jump into WMSExpress.com. It takes you to this site here. And this is a landing page for WMS Express. And I'm just going to scroll down here real quick. So a whole bunch of goodies on this site that you can use. But this chart at the bottom gives you an idea of what the package is. So all your different options here and what the limitations are. So you can see all of them do receiving and picking and shipping and various things. And over here are all the things that Warehouse Insight does. Okay, so you can go through here, and again, receiving, picking, shipping, and inventory count are really the core capabilities with WMS Express. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. I know you were sad that we left the presentation, but here we are again. All right, so the hardware options, you can use whatever you like, basically was what it boils down to. Android or Windows, well, I lied. You can't use iOS. We don't support Apple stuff right now, just the Android or the Windows. And the Windows is really just for legacy devices. I wouldn't suggest buying new Windows devices to use with this, but if you have some legacy Windows devices in your environment, they will likely work with WMS Express. For that, you'll have to contact us to help you because you need an on-premises component to run Windows. The Windows devices, ironically, don't connect directly up to Business Central, but the Android do. Now, you can also run it on your phone, so if you want to try it out, you can install it on your phone and use the camera as a scanner just to get a feel for it. But really what you want is an actual dedicated scanner device if you're using it in a warehouse or anywhere where you're doing more than a few scans a day. There's lots of options. If you purchase the hardware from us, you can buy it off the website. It comes preloaded and set up and essentially ready to go. So, and I'll show you how that works. So let's actually have a quick look at that. If you come into the site here, it'll have a button for hardware options, and it'll take you to this page. And there's a few standard ones we recommend, but again, you can work with pretty much any maker model that's Android 5 or newer. But these are the ones that are going to work the most seamlessly. So we've got some Honeywell, some Datalogic, some Zebra, those types of things. What I'll be demoing on today is actually this Datalogic Memoir 10. It's a good little device. It's a phone style device, can take a SIM card, all that kind of good stuff. And it has an optional pistol grip you can use. But all these devices here you can choose. This little Memoir 1 is a great one to try with. You can get just the basic version for about $600 if you don't need the charger and all that stuff. So it's a good little unit to try. At any rate, you can come in here, you can look at all the different options for the different devices and that sort of thing. Pick one, buy it online with a credit card. It shows up pre-configured and you're pretty much ready to go. All right. So that was the hardware. Let's talk about support. So you want to try this thing out. It's a free tool, so we don't provide direct email and phone support, but you can go to our knowledge base. So there's a knowledge base with all the user guides and installation instructions, all that kind of good stuff. There's also a community forum. You can ask questions in there, and quite often it's going to be our support people answering those questions anyway. It's just not necessarily going to be as immediate as if you have a paid support plan. And then we have an FAQ at that knowledge base site. If you do need more help, you can pre-purchase support hours from us, and we'll help you do the implementation and do support and all that kind of stuff. But that paid support is not necessary. It's not required. You can likely do all of this yourself. So just one more look at the website. If we go to the knowledge base website, so kb.dmsiworks.com, you can come down here, go to WMS Express, open it up, and again, it's got the 3 different versions here, and they've got all the documents you need to use it, all the user guides, everything else. So everything should be here that you need to get working with the system. Okay. All right. Some other resources. So again, you can contact us if you need more information, or contact your partner. That's if your partner is one of our resellers, you can check our website. They should be able to help you out. And if not, they can get in touch with us for those questions. WMS Express website, the knowledge base, and some of the related applications. If you go to dmsiworks.com, they'll have links to all of these other things that you can look at, but definitely worth checking out some of these additional applications. All right, so that's basically it. It didn't take too long on that presentation, so that's good. We're going to jump in and look at the demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through as if I'd gone in and installed this. So I'm running here on my Business Central Cloud Sandbox, and I'm not going to actually do the full install, but what I would do is I would come into AppSource or through Business Central. I'd find WMS Express. You can just search for WMS Express in here and find it, or search for InsightWorks to get a list of all the products. Get it now. It's going to come in and it's going to say, hey, yeah, I agree. Hit continue, and you're installed. And by the way, we don't, we're not going to spam you and all that kind of stuff. You'll get an email, giving you some more detail, but that's about it. You go in, you install it, and once it's installed into Business Central, you're going to come in and you're going to run assisted setup. Okay, so with assisted setup, this is where it lets you choose which version you're running. And again, just check the website to indicate, what version you actually want to use. When you come in to set up WMS Express, now it warns me because I've already done this once. I'm just going to say yes, I want to do it again, and it comes in, and we're just going to accept the terms and conditions. Hit next. Here's where you choose your option. Okay, so if you have no warehouse or inventory documents turned on, or if you don't know what those are, then they're probably not turned on. You would choose standard. If you have inventory picks or inventory putaways turned on, you choose this. And if you have warehouse stuff turned on, you choose that. So you choose the version you want. You hit next. You enter your contact information. You hit next. And here you say, yeah, I want to set up a specific location code in here, right? You choose a location you want to start with. You can add locations at any point. This is just to get you started initially. You put in your username and then your API key. So if I come in here and I just put my name in, you can use the assist button to choose it. And then I hit this, it's going to open up my user card. The way you do it is you just click on this and you hit Control-C, and that will say that field value is copied. So there's really no indication that you've actually copied it or anything like that, or selected it. And once you've got that, you can now paste it into here, and that'll be your initial login badge for testing it out. So that's basically what you do. You do all that stuff. You come in here. I'm not going to hit next because it's going to download the application, install it, do all that kind of good stuff, and it takes a few minutes. So we're going to skip that. But at the end of this process, after it downloads everything and does all that stuff, what you end up with is it generates a report. And this is the report that you get. Now it says Warehouse Insight, but it applies to WMS Express. And it comes in and it gives you basically 3 barcodes to scan. If you're not using a device that you've purchased from us, you'll have to install the software. So you can go into the web browser and you scan this barcode, and it'll basically download the app and you can install it. After it's installed, you come in and you scan this barcode to configure it, and then you scan the last barcode to actually log in. And this is using those credentials that I didn't fully enter when I did the install. And that's it. So if you purchase hardware from us, you're going to scan step 2 and step 3, and you're done. So let me show you what that looks like. So again, what I've done, I went to AppSource, I installed the app. It took a few minutes. I came in, I did the assisted setup. I ran through, chose the flavor that I want to run. I entered my information. 5 minutes later, I've got this report to scan. And, I also went in and I went and, said, buy it now. And I've ordered some hardware and it's shown up. So what does that look like? Let's take a look at that device. So what I've got here is I've got the device in my hand. So this is a Memoir 10. So that's one of, oops, let me move this guy out of the way. Geez, can't use my mouse. That's one of these guys here I have in my hand, right? So that's what I'm running. And this is what it looks like right after I unpack it from the box from us. So you order it, this is what it's going to look like. Now the icon actually might be sitting up here instead of down in the tray or whatever, but this is basically what you get. And what you're going to do is you're going to tap, the icon there to start the application, and it's going to load up, and it comes up and says, hey, scan your configuration barcode to begin, or you can do manual configuration. So this is that report that was generated. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to fire this up. I already have the app, so I'm going to scan step 2. So I scan the barcode for that, and that basically just configured the application to connect to Business Central for me. And here I'm going to say, remember me, and I'm going to scan the login badge that I had defined. So I scan that. It enters all the information. And we give it a sec. And what it's doing right now, by the way, is it's connecting to Business Central. It's configuring the handheld. It's loading all the application information onto the handheld and getting all set up, and that's it. We are now connected to Business Central and working. So I don't know how long that took me, maybe 5 minutes to go through those steps. And we now have a working scanner connected to Business Central and ready to go. Okay, so it is really that simple to get set up. Now, the only thing is I cheated a little bit here. You wouldn't see this big WMS Express icon there. That's actually set up from within Business Central. When you set it up, you can put whatever logo you want here. So you can have your company logo there, or you can have a picture of the user that's logged in, or whatever you want. You can do something like that. Okay, now let's look at what that looks like within Business Central, what that configuration looks like. So within Business Central, there's a few things you can set up. So report selections let you choose, like if you're printing item labels and everything from the handheld and all that sort of thing, you can come in there and specify which reports you want to use. There's some standard ones that we use, but you can set that up. This InsightWorks users, what that lets you do is it changes the way you log into the system. And this is where you might want to check the knowledge base or contact support, but you can actually have it set up so that you can define warehouse users separately from Business Central users. So if I wanted to list a whole, Joe, Fred, Frank, all that kind of stuff in here, they're not Business Central users or anything like that, and I can use these to log in from the handheld device. So it does have that capability. All the same sorts of things you can do in Warehouse Insight, you can do with WMS Express. So any of these things that we have listed here are also available in Warehouse Insight, and there's tons of documentation on it. On the device side, there's a whole bunch of things you can set up here, how we deal with quantity entries and how we scan for things and all sorts of stuff, how we parse the barcodes. So all the same capabilities as Warehouse Insight, like we can embed item numbers, lot numbers, serial numbers, and barcodes and scan those out, all that kind of stuff. And then finally, the device configurations where you set most of what you're doing on the handheld. So I've got 2 defined. Main is the one that I'm playing with on the device. And you can do all sorts of stuff, right? You can set tons of different options. So it's not limited to, this is how you have to use it. There's lots of different things you can set, all sorts of different options that you can set up on the thing. And there's that little logo I mentioned to tailor the system to work the way you want it to work without having to do those customizations. All right, so that's the basic setup, and maybe I spent too much time on that, but the end result again is we've got this little dude here with my applications. Okay, so I'm going to run through these. I'm going to start with the more. All the more does is load up and tell you how to get a hold of us. And you right from the device, you can come in and contact us or view the website and all that kind of thing. Okay, so that's all that little more does. And if you're used to the Warehouse Insight, if you've seen the Warehouse Insight webinars, it's got probably another dozen apps on top of what we see here. But these are the basic ones, right? We've got the count, we've got the receive, and we've got the ship. And since I set this up as a standard implementation, this is going to be receiving against purchase orders and shipping against sales orders. If I'd done the basic, that would have given me inventory picks and inventory putaways and all that sort of thing. And warehouse, of course, gives me the warehouse documents. So I'm going to start here with receiving, and we'll see what that looks like. Now, the first time you load it, by the way, it takes a second because it's loading the application from Business Central. So there, it took maybe a second or 2 to load this thing. And what this does is it shows me all the purchase orders in the system that I can receive against. And if I had warehouse receipts turned on, I would see warehouse receipts instead of POs and that sort of thing. Same as Warehouse Insight. And there's a longer demo on Warehouse Insight on the website if you want to see that. And from here, I can do a couple of things. Like I said, there's not much for customization that you can do, but you can do things like on the handheld device, come in here and change which fields are visible and all that kind of stuff on a sort of per scanner basis, right? So if I wanted to see, the expected receipt date, I could come in and make that visible. Or if I wanted to see the vendor name, I could make that visible on this list. So some options for tailoring the solution. But from here, basically, I can just come in and I can choose the purchase order that I want to receive against, and it loads up everything on the screen that I can receive. And you know what? Let me just do something here because I was messing with this earlier. You'll notice that item number column is really long. I don't want it that long. I'm going to shorten that up. I'm going to make it 100 characters wide. And now we've got, slightly different views. So you can make these columns whatever size you want and that sort of thing. I was messing around with this on landscape mode and anyway, it doesn't matter. So here's everything that I can receive on this particular system. And now all I have to do is start scanning. Right? If my vendor has barcoded everything, all I have to do is scan a barcode and start working. If I don't have barcodes, I can come in here on the menu, hit print, and that's actually going to print out whatever report I specified in that report selections. Typically, that's going to be an item label. So I can print out the item labels, stick them on, and away I go. Right? And there's a bunch of different things we can do. If you don't have barcodes, I could do enter item, and I could type in an item number, or I could type in a bin if I had bin set up in this particular environment, those types of things. But the standard use case is now I'm simply going to scan a barcode. And I'm actually going to scan this barcode off my other screen here. So it'll take me a second for it to register. But I scan a barcode, and the barcode I scanned actually doesn't exist. So it yells at me. There we go. That's that inventory accuracy thing that I was blabbing about earlier, where I'm not going to be able to do the wrong thing. The thing is going to yell at me if I try to do something that isn't expected or unrealistic. So it yelled at me that I scanned the wrong barcode or couldn't find that barcode on the item. Now there is actually a setting. If I scan a barcode that it doesn't recognize, it'll say, hey, do you want to create a cross-reference for this? And which item does that barcode relate to? So you can actually build up your cross-references as you're scanning and receiving. But I don't want to do that. I actually want to scan the right item. So there I scanned the right barcode, and it pops up, it finds it in the list and asks me for the quantity that I'm receiving. So let's say I found 11 of those, and that's it. This is now in Business Central. This put this 11 into Business Central, and I've got 9 left to find in this particular receipt. And that's as simple as it is, right? Scan a barcode, enter a quantity. And that's all real time with Business Central. So let's say later on I find more of those 1908S things, and I scan it again. And now let's say I found 5 of them. And when I do that, you'll notice it just keeps incrementing my quantity received and reducing my outstanding quantity. So that's all receiving is. When you find something, you scan it and you optionally enter quantity. With that scan behaviors thing I mentioned, you actually also have the ability to say, I want to scan this particular item 20 times. I want to scan each item individually. I don't want to enter quantity. I want to force them. If you've got lot tracked items or serial tracked items, we handle that as well. The serial number or lot number can be in the barcode, but if it's not, you can scan a secondary barcode or manually enter it or have the system create that lot number or serial number for you. So we have all that serial and lot number handling built in as well. Okay, and of course, if you don't have barcodes, I could just come into a line here and tap on it and enter the quantity receiving without actually scanning a barcode. And again, you can also turn that off. You can prevent people from being able to do that and force them to scan. Okay, so that's basically it. And there is a question here that I will answer real quick. If I'm in the middle of this and I drop this handheld into a toilet or a forklift runs over it or something, can I pick up another handheld and just start where I left off? Yeah, no problem, right? All this is real time with Business Central. So everything I've done is now stored in Business Central. If I look up this purchase order in Business Central, we'll see the quantity received set based on what I've scanned here. So yeah, and I can have multiple people working on this purchase order at the same time if you really want it, okay? There is another question on Business Central device license. Yeah, so licensing is a tricky one. The way I'm logged in here on this particular device, I'm just going to back out. I'm logged in under my Business Central user ID. So that's kind of nice. If you're in a smaller organization where the warehouse guy already has a Business Central login because he's doing other stuff, he can use that same login on the device and you don't have to get a separate license for the device. But if I've got a bunch of warehouse guys, 5 warehouse guys that might share the same gun periodically throughout the day, what you would buy is you'd buy a device license from Microsoft, and then that device license can be shared by all of those warehouse personnel because that you're licensing the actual device that they're using. Okay. All right, so that was receiving, pretty straightforward. Lots of good options that I didn't cover, but pretty straightforward. Now, if I go into shipping, again, because we're on the standard, it's going to give me a list of sales orders to use. If this was the basic, I would have inventory picks listed here instead. If it was warehouse, I'd have warehouse picks listed instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to open up, I think this first one. By the way, that little circle you sort of see floating on the screen there, that's my finger tapping. So there's a couple ways I can get this. I can double tap that line, or I can tap the menu and hit choose. If you have a device with a physical keyboard, you never have to touch the screen. You just touch the physical keyboard and that's it. Well, that guy only has one on there. Let's go to this guy here. And what I'm going to do here is pretty much exactly the same thing that I did when I was receiving, right? I don't have bins enabled in this environment. Otherwise, it would show me the bin I'm supposed to pick from and prompt me to scan that bin first to validate I'm picking from the right bin. But since I don't have bins enabled, it doesn't show it. If I did want to show the bin, I could show it, and we can show the shelf number and things like that as well. I can make that visible, and away we go, but it'll be empty because I don't have bins enabled. So here again, if I'm going to pick and ship this stuff, I simply find the item that I want to pick. I scan the barcode. It doesn't matter what order I do it in, and that's it. And what I've done now is I've told Business Central that I've picked 10 of these and they're ready to ship. And then same thing on the other one, I could scan the barcode or manually enter, or you know, do the lookup list, right? So I could come in here and get a list of items or whatever else and do it that way. But that's basically it. Now when I'm done this, I've picked this order completely. It tells me it's done. I can simply come in here, I can hit post, and that'll actually post that shipment right there. I don't have to go into Business Central and post this order to get it out the door. I can do it right from here. And if you have a bit of a two-stage, like if I first want to do packaging and everything else before I ship this thing, that's where you might want to look at dynamic ship, right? Because I can turn on warehouse picks, pick everything, register that pick. So it says, okay, I've picked it and it's sitting at shipping waiting to be shipped. And then somebody with dynamic ship can package that up, get your shipping labels and get it out the door. And in an environment like that, you know, dynamic ship isn't that expensive. So for a couple $100 a month, you've got, you know, your scanning capability, you're picking through a scanner, you're getting your rate shopping, your labels, everything else. And it's like, you know, whatever it is, a couple $100 or so a month to be able to get that level of functionality. That's pretty good. All right, enough salesy stuff. So that's it for shipping. Same thing. I can come in here, just scan what I need to pick, and away I go. There's additional behavior when you're on inventory picks and warehouse picks, like you can split lines, you can do a bunch of stuff like that as you'd expect to do. But on sales orders, it's really basic. You scan the barcode, you enter the quantity optionally, and you're done. Simple as that. Now, the last thing we'll talk about is the inventory count. So I've got the standard count set up here. If you install the advanced inventory count from AppSource, if you go into AppSource and install that, then this icon will switch to count, and you've now got the advanced count. And the advanced count has much better tools for reconciliation, you know, much better auditing tools. If you have auditors coming and checking your counts, if you want to do better cycle counting, all that kind of stuff is available with the advanced count. And again, it's not all that expensive. It probably pays for itself quite easily if you're doing regular cycle counts or if you've got lots of troubles doing full physicals. But the standard count, what that does, that basically integrates with the physical inventory journal within Business Central. So when I load that up, it gives me a list of all the batches that are available on that physical inventory journal, and you can create whatever batches you like. So I've created one here for Count Team 1 and another one for Jim and Fred, and there's the default journal, all that kind of stuff. So you list these journals within the thing, and there's a few ways you can do it. You can go in and you can use the standard physical inventory journal to generate those sheets ahead of time. So you can go in and you can say, you know what, I want to do a cycle count, so I'm going to calculate cycle or count periods, sorry, is the term they use. And what that will do is generate a list of things you can count, or you can calculate inventory if you're doing full count, and that'll give you a list of all the items you need to go out and find and count. Alternatively, you can do, you know, a lot of people call it a blind count, but a non-directed count where you go in and there are no items suggested to count. You're simply going to go out there and scan everything you find. So as an example, if I open this Team 1 batch, it's going to start out blank unless I was messing with it. Good. Starts out blank. And this one does have the bin field visible, but because we don't have bins enabled, I'm just going to hide that. And what I have to do now is simply scan the item and enter the quantity. So somebody gives me a scanner and says, go count that aisle over there, or go count the west side of the warehouse. I'm going to go and scan everything, and it's just going to add it into the physical inventory journal, and we can post it. Alternatively, I could have calculated inventory, and it would give me a list of all the items in this that I'd have to count, along with the bin codes and everything else if I had those enabled. So here, it's, again, dirt simple. I simply walk up to the item. If there were bins enabled, I'd first scan the bin before I scan the item. In this case, I just scan the item. It finds it. I enter the quantity that I'm counting on that particular item, and that's it. And then I scan the next item I find and enter the quantity I found on that, and so on and so forth. And that's how I do my inventory count. That's it. Simply go through. And then within Business Central, what you would do is come in here and go to the physical inventory journals. And there's team one, and there's everything I scanned from the handheld device. And I can run my test report, I can post it, I can do all of that kind of stuff at this point here. So pretty straightforward, right? It's very easy to do, and you know, that's how you can do your inventory counts. And again, if I come in and use the calculate inventory, calculate counting period to generate those list of items, they'd show up on the handheld. I go and simply scan that bin, that item, it'll find it, I enter the quantity, and I'm good to go. So that is a quick overview of, you know, the various functions within WMS Express using sort of the basic setup. Again, if you use standard, you get inventory picks and inventory putaways. If you use warehouse, you get warehouse picks, warehouse putaways, and that sort of thing. All right, let's have a look at some of the questions here. Do we need to pick from the list of scanners on that site? No, you don't. You can use whatever scanner you want, but it has to be Android 5 or newer. And ideally, you've already got it set up to be able to scan barcodes. So the way we set this up, let me talk about the configuration on the handhelds a little bit here too. So when I go into configure, by the way, the default password is 1234. It'll save you from searching the website for it. And there's a bunch of configuration options. All of this stuff here actually came in when I scanned that configuration barcode. It held all of the things, you know, that we need to get this thing set up by default. So how we connect, what the logins are, all that kind of stuff. So by the way, on the logins, this is where we can decide if we're using the user login, which is that IWX users, or the Windows login, which is your Business Central login, right? That type of stuff. That all comes in from those barcode scans. But if I go into device here, oops, I lied, not device, barcoding. If I go into barcoding here, the way we do it is, the way we prefer to do it is what we call an Android intent. So if you're not on Android, anything with a built-in scanner will use what we call an intent, and you got to set that up. So if you're not using Zebra, DataLogic, or Honeywell, you're going to have to get on the manufacturer's guide and figure out what these values are, because these are, you know, manufacturer-specific values that you'll have to enter here. Okay. There is also the ability to do it with a keyboard prefix or like a keyboard wedge, but that's definitely not ideal. We prefer using the built-in Android stuff. The other thing you can do is you can use this camera. So if you're on a cell phone, when you first start up, if you install the app, it'll recognize that, hey, this isn't anything I recognize as a scanner, and it'll ask you if you want to use the camera. And if you say yes, it'll enable this. And then you get to choose which barcode formats you want to support through that camera interface, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff, and a few are selected by default. And what that camera thing does, if that's enabled, and you can enable that even on devices that have built-in scanners, what that does, I'll just show you here. Now it's reloading the applications and everything from Business Central, but it puts this little icon on the screen here, and you can actually just drag that little guy around wherever you want. And the purpose of that is to keep it near your thumb or your finger, so you can do one-handed, right? I can hold this with one hand, and then this guy is always near where my thumb taps. And when I tap that, you're going to see my monitor and my dirty desk here in a sec, right? So I tap that, it launches the camera, and I can now use this to scan barcodes. So that's how the camera interface works if you want to use it on a cell phone. Okay. Now, cell phones definitely aren't ideal in a warehouse environment or anything like that. They're good enough to do a quick test with the system, or if you've got an outside sales guy or something like that, you can use that camera scanning as well. and you can position this thing wherever you like on the screen, and away you go. Okay, let's look at some other questions. There's a question about scanning multiple serial numbers. Unfortunately, in the demo data with Cronus here, I don't have any serialized items, but I believe there are some examples in the webinar, the recorded webinar on your website for Warehouse Insight. You can check that out, and it'll show you how you can scan multiple serial numbers. Or you could install WMS Express and give it a shot yourself, because it only takes 10 minutes to do. Let's see. What are the sort options for picking? Can it default to sort by bin or shelf number? Yes. So good question. So if you're doing an inventory pick or warehouse pick, that's built-in Business Central capability. You set the sort order within Business Central, and that's what it'll use on the scanners. Now, if you're just on a sales order and you want to sort by bin code, like let's say you entered a bunch of sales lines with different bin codes. By the way, if you do have bins, enabled, you probably want to go to inventory picks instead of picking directly to a sales order. But anyway, that's another story. But let's say I wanted to sort by bin code. I can just tap up here. I can tap the header and I can sort by whatever I like. So you see it's got a little arrow there that's now telling me the sort order has changed. So I can sort by any field that I want on any screen. Okay. And it remembers that sort order. So if I have it, if I have the bin code field set here and I sort by bin code, the next time I come in, it'll sort the next order by bin code as well. Okay. And there's a confirmation inventory counts with serial number and lot numbers not possible with Express. Correct. Well, I shouldn't say that. The standard count in Express here doesn't record any lot numbers or serial numbers. There's no way to do it using the physical inventory journal in any reasonable way. So we don't record the lot number or serial number when you count. You can still count lot tracked items and serial tracked items, but if there are discrepancies, you have to manually enter the lot numbers and serial numbers that are out of whack. Okay, so it's a bit of a pain. So if you do have lot numbers and serial numbers, you're better off using the advanced count, but you can still use standard count for those. If you rarely have discrepancies in your lot numbers and serial numbers, it'd probably work just fine, right? And the other thing is, the standard count, if you don't have bins enabled, you have to be careful with that too, because if you have multiple people out there counting and two people count the same product in different places in the warehouse, that's going to cause an issue on the physical inventory journal. It doesn't handle that well, right? The advanced count handles that appropriately. Okay. Somebody, it sounds like somebody's trying to do some scanning here already, which is awesome, following along. And it says it won't scan. So if you run into a situation where you have a scanner and it's not scanning or anything like that, it's almost certainly that data intent stuff that I showed you, where you go into the configuration and oops, like that. And if you go into the barcoding, all of this stuff here needs to be set properly for it to scan. If it's something that you've purchased from us, this should all be set by default and it should just work. If it isn't, and you did buy the hardware from us, you can contact us and we will support you on getting that hardware up and running. Okay. If you didn't buy the hardware from us and you're having problems getting that going, then that might end up being paid support, or you could try the forum or the knowledge base. All right, let's see. What else do we have here for questions? All right, that looks like it for questions so far. If you do have any other questions on this, this webinar will be recorded. We'll likely post it. You can check out the website, the WMS Express site, for additional information about what it can and can't do. You can check out the knowledge base for the the user guides and all that kind of stuff and all that sort of thing. And by the way, these are the user guides for WMS Express. If you want additional information about installs and all that sort of thing, you can also check out Warehouse Insight, because a lot of that is the same as WMS Express. So for example, if you go into the user guide for this in Warehouse Insight, it'll have a lot of information about how we parse barcodes and do all that barcode configuration and everything else. And that might be useful for you in WMS Express as well. The search works very well. So if you want to know, barcodes with serial numbers, you type that into the search, it'll find the appropriate article and away you go. All right. So that's it. Again, if you have questions, check this out, contact your partner. Worst case, try the form or send us an email directly, and we'll do our best to help you out. And with that, we'd like to thank everybody for attending, and I hope you have a great rest of the week, and hopefully we'll be talking again soon. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content.